Welcome to the top custom Hearthstone cards of the week, where I take a look at the most interesting and creative cards posted to the custom Hearthstone subreddit. For the first card this week, we have Egotistical Fencer. It is a 3-mana 5/4 paladin minion with rush, and all enemy minions have taunt. And obviously, a 3-mana 5/4 with rush is a very strong body, but it's outweighed by the fact that while it's on the board, all enemy minions have taunt, which means, it can't go face. As long as the enemy has at least one minion on board, it's kind of holding you back in that regard. So that balances out the stats a bit. But it's not all a bad thing. One thing to keep in mind is that this effect is actually a way to bring something hiding behind taunts forward, right? So say your opponent has some key minion or combo piece or something hiding behind a taunt, you could actually play this and then be able to attack directly into it. So I like how versatile it is. Like I said, it is a very strong, powerful body for the cost, but it's kind of slowing you down a bit and stopping you from just going face as long as the opponent's putting bodies down. And add on to the fact that it can be used to, target some minions kind of behind, the wall of taunts. I think it's a very versatile and interesting card. And next up, we have Forlorn Lovers. It is a 5-mana 3/3 priest minion with whenever you control less than 2 Forlorn Lovers, summon another. So essentially, when you play this, it would trigger right away and summon a second copy. So one way to think about it is essentially a 5-mana 6/6 across 2 bodies. And it's obviously very hard to get rid of. As a result, every time you only kill one of them, it would immediately summon a second one. So the only way to really deal with this is some kind of AoE effect or board clear or an AoE silence. So it is very sticky, it is very hard to get rid of, but also it's just not very strong. Other than that, it's essentially just a vanilla 3/3 body on the board. So while on one hand, it is very hard to get rid of and it is very sticky, it's also not doing a whole lot, which I think balances out a bit. And also, maybe someone smarter than me can think of some kind of cool combos or effects you could pull off with a card like this, because it is a very unique design, there's no doubt about that. And also the theme and the flavor of this card is just so on point. The idea of this couple that can't be separated even in death, and there's always 2 of them together. I think it's a very flavorful design. But is there some kind of cool combo you can think of with a card like this? Let me know in the comments. And for the third card this week, we have Beached Whale. It is a 4-mana 8/8 priest minion with can't attack, battle cry, deal 3 damage to this minion, and when it reaches full health, silence it. So this is essentially like those other minions that, are big stats for the cost, but can't attack by default or can't attack unless they're under some kind of special condition, which I think are fun cards. They're fun because they require very unique decks to enable them and, make them effective. And I had to give this card a shout out because, it was uploaded mere hours before the actual Beached Whale card was announced, which is very similar in some ways. Both of these cards, they're taking damage when they enter the field, and they're big bodies. So bonus points for predicting a real card and not being too far off from the actual design as well. But as I mentioned, I've always been a fan of cards like this. I think they result in very unique decks and just very fun and different decks. So thumbs up for me in that regard. For the fourth card this week, we have Apostle of Xavius. It is a 3-mana 2/4 neutral minion with elusive, and you always have 1 more mana crystal than your opponent. I think this might be the most interesting card this week to me, just because it's so unique. We've never really had anti-ramp tech as far as I can recall. And I will say, this card definitely needs to be cleaned up. I think the wording is up for a lot of interpretation. I think it should read maybe at the start of your turn, you have 1 more mana crystal than your opponent. But essentially how it works is, say it turns to you on turn 4, but you're playing against a druid who's ramped up to 8 mana already at this point. Your turn would start and you would have 9 mana for that turn. But keep in mind, this effect is only going on while the minion's on the board. So as soon as it gets destroyed, you would no longer have, the increased mana crystals. So overall, I think this is a very unique design. As I mentioned, I don't really think we have any kind of anti-ramp tech. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but it's very unique in that regard. But I think it just needs to be cleaned up because, like I said, the text isn't super clear, and I think it works better as a start of turn effect, as I mentioned. But very, very cool design. Very unique for sure. For the fifth card this week, we have Tess, Queen of Gilneas. It is a 4-mana 3/3 rogue legendary minion with battle cry. If your deck started with no duplicates, discover a minion with a no duplicate effect. And I did not realize until I saw this card that Rogue has actually never been given a Highlander payoff effect. So I think this is a perfect solution to that. This is giving Rogue a Highlander payoff effect, and it's also kind of playing on Rogue's theme of playing cards from other classes. So you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone there, and I think it's really neat. Obviously, the first thing to come to mind is repeating this with various effects, like Shadow Step or Breakdance or things like that, which it would be very cool and very good. But you also have to keep in mind, you still have to play the card you discover, right? So most of the Highlander payoff cards are kind of more towards the expensive end. So typically, you're probably not going to be playing Tess and then the card in the same turn. So bouncing it is very slow. Yes, you're discovering multiple Highlander payoff cards that are typically very strong, but unless you're cheating them out in some way, you're not going to be just playing them back to back over and over, right? So yes, it's a strong effect that can be repeated, but it's a little slow in that regards. But like I said, I think the design of this card is like A+. It fits that gap of Rogue not having a Highlander payoff card, and it fills that in such a Rogue effect. And maybe I'm a little biased, I love Thief Rogue personally, and if this card was in the game, I would be playing it all the time. But as I mentioned, very, very cool design, and so in theme with Rogue. And for the last card this week, it's kind of a bonus card in that it's not a totally new card. It is a reimagining of an existing card, and it is Hemet Nesingwary. It's a 4-mana 5/4 neutral legendary minion with Battlecry, Destroy a Beast, and all copies of it wherever they are. And this is a reimagining of the current Hemet Nesingwary, which is a 5-mana 6/3 neutral legendary minion with Battlecry, Destroy a Beast, which is absolutely terrible. Hemet has been the butt end of jokes for a long, long time just because of how bad it is. This card came out very, very early in Hearthstone's life, and even then it was trash. I don't recall this card ever seeing play outside of some meme decks and things like that. And while this reimagined version still isn't amazing, it's at least better than the old Hemet, right? So I do like the idea of going back and revisiting old legendaries and kind of updating them to modern standards, because there's a lot of old clunky legendaries that never really saw play, but are kind of interesting concepts. So I really like this. I think I had a video in the past where I also went over a reimagining of a current card, and I love these. So I hope to see more in the future, and let me know in the comments, would you play this version of Hemet? Is it still bad? Let me know. But that'll be all the cards this week. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, and let me know what was your favorite card this week. Other than that though, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.